Alright, so this will be the Chapter 3, Learning Target Number 1 video. So this is kind of what the whole chapter's been about. Up to this point, we've focused on the reviewing of fractions and mixed numbers and improper fractions. And I'll go over that really quickly here. But basically today, what we're going to be doing is you guys are going to be computing, which means just finding, I guess, quotients of mixed numbers, fractions, and whole numbers. Now, if you don't remember what a quotient is, it's the answer to a division problem. Okay, so that's where we're gonna be doing division today, which is a little bit tricky. Now, half of the battle is being able to do these 5th grade concepts we talked about. You've got to know how to do this. You got to know how to turn a mixed into an improper. Okay, so for those of you that need a little refresher, if I had that mixed number and I wanted to convert it to an improper fraction, I'm gonna go what I call around the barn, which is ridiculous, but it kind of helps you remember it. But you do 4 times 2, and then you're going to add on 3. So 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. That's how I got my number of pieces, and then that would be 11/4. So that's how you would convert into an improper. Now, turning an improper to a mixed number, you do the division problem because all fractions are division problems. 11 divided by 4. 4 goes into 11 2 whole times. We're going to get a remainder, like you would have when you were in elementary. You would have put R3, but that 3 is just going to become the fraction part of your mixed number. So 2 3/4. You can see it gets us right back to what we started with. So we already covered that. I think we got a good refresher on that. So that was that. Then we had to refresh on multiplying fractions. Which I kind of showed you, and I think you understand now, is actually the easiest thing we do with fractions. It's easier than adding and subtracting fractions. So when you're multiplying fractions, I'll do the one they have there. Remember, you just do top times top, bottom times bottom, and you get 8/15. And there you go. Okay. Now you got to always check to make sure it's simplified. That's another thing we reviewed when we were talking about the 5th grade skills that we had to cover there. So 8 and 15, you got to see if they have any common factors. One way to do it is to go up and find the GCF of 8 and 15. And you could do it that way too. You could break it down, stack them up, find the GCF. They shouldn't have any common factors if it's in simplest form. Okay, other than 1, obviously. Then we also talked about this, where maybe we had something like 2/6 times 12/8, something like that. And yeah, you could just go ahead and do top times top, bottom times bottom, and you'd get 24/48. But then you've got to simplify that, like I just talked about. Okay, so what we learned, you had already learned it, a lot of you anyway, had learned a method called cross simplifying. So cross simplifying, which I believe is easier. I'm not telling you have to do it, but if I'm telling you it's going to make your life a little easier, you may want to try it. So when I'm looking here, I'm going, okay, I looked at these two numbers that are diagonal. Now remember, this only works when we're talking about a multiplication problem. And I say, okay, 2 and 8. What factor does 2 and 8 have in common? Or another way to say it, what is 2 and 8 divisible by? What are both of them divisible by? Okay, 2, hopefully. You're all seeing that they have a common 2. So then you're going to take that 2 and you're going to divide each of these numbers by 2. So 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. Okay, now we'll go the other way. And now we'll do 6 and 12. Okay, it's called cross simplifying. Okay, so we do that. What factor does 6 and 12 share? Some of you might be saying 2, 3. Those would all work, but I would say the biggest common factor they share is 6. So I'm going to divide both of these by 6, and I'm going to get 1 here. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Now I have a nice small number. I can just do 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 4 is 4. And then simplify from there, which it's pretty easy to see that both of those have a factor of 2. So that's going to be 1/2. Okay. Now if I were to go up here and do it, I would have had to divide by 2 here, make it 12/24, divide by 2 again, divide by 2 again, and that's going to give me 6/12, and then you could keep doing that all day until you get to 1/2. Okay, So it just depends whether you want to simplify after you've multiplied or you want to simplify before you've multiplied. Okay, now go ahead and go to the next page. There's some practice there if you want to practice some more multiplying of fractions. I can check that for you if you still need that practice. But let's go ahead and go to page 5. Okay. Now this is what the chapter is all about. Really the whole chapter really wants to focus on quotients. Okay. Now quotients really aren't hard, but I think everybody would agree that if we had to rank addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, if we had to rank them from easiest to hardest, I think they would probably go in that order. I think everybody would consider division to be the hardest. Most people anyway. Maybe not everyone, but most. Okay? Well, in this case, I still honestly feel that addition and subtraction of fractions are harder than multiplication and division of fractions. Okay? So, we got some words here you got to know. Now, it's really hard to see on my copy here, but you have your notes in front of you, or if you don't, you can download them from right below where the video is. Okay? You're going to be able to divide fractions, whole numbers, and mixed numbers by each other. Okay? And we got to understand some word. We got to understand the word reciprocals. That's a big word here. We got to understand what an improper is, which we know. Mixed number is. You know what those two are. The only one you've never heard probably is reciprocal. So we're going to talk about that now. Here we go. Here's your definition. Put a big star beside it. It will be on the test. I can almost promise. I don't want to promise you, but you get my point. It's probably going to be there. Okay, what is a reciprocal, or what is the definition of a reciprocal? Reciprocals are always going to have a product of 1. So a lot of you are going to see reciprocals like 2/5, and you're just going to say, oh, you just flip it over. Because those are reciprocals. They are. That's exactly what a reciprocal is. They technically are just the flipped version of the number. But I never want you guys to tell me that. Okay, when I ask you what a reciprocal is, I want to know this. Okay, so let me explain to you what that means. If I already told you that these two numbers are reciprocals of each other. If I multiply them because of product, answer to a multiplication problem, I had better get 1. If I don't get 1, then I did something wrong. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10. What is any number over top of itself? Hopefully you're all saying 1. Okay? You're saying you have 10 pieces of pizza out of 10 pieces of pizza. If you have 10 out of 10, that means you have 1 whole pizza. Okay? Another example. Let's say 3/4. What's the reciprocal of that? Well, it's 4/3. And that word is reciprocal. Reciprocal. Practice saying it because you're going to have to know. Yes, it is just the flipped version, but once again, think about it. If you were to multiply them, you're going to get 12 over 12, which equals 1. Reciprocals always have a product of 1. Okay? Let's go ahead and go to the next page. Here's some questions for you. 1/2, the reciprocal of 1/2 is going to be 2, which is just 2 over 1, right? But we know that any whole number can become a fraction by putting it over 1. So 18 is the same thing as 18 over 1. Okay? So if you think about it, if you did 1/2 times 2 over 1, you do top times top, bottom times bottom, you get 2 over 2, which equals 1. Right? Here, the reciprocal of 2/3 is going to be 3/2. Why? Because top times top, bottom times bottom, that's going to give me 6 over 6, which ultimately equals 1. I know that's where you're supposed to put the reciprocal, but that's fine. Okay? Alright. So that's what reciprocals are. Now that's very important. Now, take special note. This word right here, it will be on the test as well. You need to know what the definition of that word is. Okay? The definition. So I'll put another star. So you guys, when you're going back in your notes, you can take a look at this and make sure that you're preparing yourself for this type of question. What an algorithm is it's a step-by-step process. For instance, if I gave you 2.98 times 0.1, Okay, you all know how to do this. Now, there's many different ways that maybe your teachers in elementary school taught you to do it. Remember, the way I taught you is just to get rid of the decimals for a minute and do 298 times 1. And then you do this next set of steps, 8, 1 times 9 is 9, 1 times 2 is 2. And then you go up and say, okay, I had 1, 2, 3 numbers to the right of the decimal, so I need to move it 1, 2, 3. Okay? Now, what you just did right there, that is an algorithm. That is the algorithm for finding or for multiplying decimals. There's a different algorithm for whatever the skill is. Okay? So if I gave you 2 fractions, 2/5 plus 1/2. You guys all know how to do this. You know that, oh yeah, I got to find a common denominator, in this case 10. I got to do whatever I did to the bottom, I must do to the top, so times 2, so I got to do times 2 there. Times 5, so I got to do times 5 there. And I get 9/10, and then I need to simplify. What you just did there, algorithm. Those are algorithms. Okay, it's a step-by-step process to find the answer to a problem. That's all it is. So there is an algorithm. Okay. So you definitely need to know what an algorithm is. Okay, there's all kinds of algorithms. You learn algorithms all the time in math. Just a step-by-step process. Okay, divisor, the number you are dividing by is the key word there. We'll talk about that. Okay, and the dividend, that's the number that's being divided or being split up or being cut up or sectioned up or grouped up. It is the first number in a division problem. So we've kind of covered that on review sheets. If you just say it, 33 divided by 11, you can hear it. This is saying divided by 11. So if you're dividing it by this, then 11 has to be the divisor because the number you are dividing by. Okay? And the dividend, that's the one that's being cut up. So if I had 33 Skittles and I was dividing them by my 11 students that I had in my class, this would be able to tell me how many Skittles each student is going to get. Okay? So let's go down and do some practice now. Okay? Find the reciprocal of each number. We can just do those real quick here. We've pretty much talked about it, but it is just the flipped version of whatever the number is. So this goes up, this goes down. But just remember, what makes it a reciprocal is the fact that if you were to multiply it, you actually get 1 whole. Okay? The reciprocal here, well, that would be 3 over 1, or just 3. Now this one, be careful. Remember, we've got to put it in fraction form. So over 1. So then the reciprocal of that would be 1/11. Okay? All right. We're going to skip those for now. We're just going to come up here. We're going to skip all that, I think. Okay. Now, we're going to divide these using the algorithm. Now, just like there was an algorithm for adding fractions, subtracting fractions, multiplying fractions, adding decimals, multiplying decimals, finding GCF, everything is an algorithm. Pretty much everything you learn in math is going to be an algorithm. Remember, think about it. If I said find the GCF of 10 and 15, you knew there was a set of steps that you had to follow. Okay, I got to do my prime factorization. I got to stack my prime factorization. I got to look for CFs. Then I got to, okay, that is just an algorithm. Okay, there are different algorithms for every skill. Okay, so I'm about to teach you the algorithm for dividing. Okay, here we have 4 divided by 4/7. Okay, now in order to divide or multiply ever, all numbers need to be put into fraction form. When I say fraction form, I mean one number over another number. Okay, so either improper or proper fractions. So that's going to be our first step here. And I always want you to show this first step. So I've got to make 4 into fraction form. Now remember, all whole numbers are over top of 1 because you're saying that you have 4 wholes, so that would be 4 wholes. Okay? Divided by 4/7. Now the mistake, I'm going to show you the mistake. This is the mistake. I don't want you guys to get confused here. This is the mistake. And I'll go up to a different problem, actually. So I'll do the mistake up here. A lot of students, they think, oh, you can just well, actually, I'll just keep it that one. 6/5 divided by 2/5, something like that. Some students might say, oh, well, you can just do top times top, bottom, or I'm sorry, top divided by top and bottom divided by bottom. You can't do that. It does not work. Okay? That is not the algorithm for division. I wish it was, because it would make it a lot easier on you, but it's not. Okay? So, the algorithm for dividing fractions. Okay? Now, this is very important that you got to know which one the dividend is. Okay? So, I'm going to draw arrows here, and you should as well. Okay? That number right there, this is 4 divided by. So, that number right there is your dividend. You do need to know those, the difference. I will ask you that on the test as well. I will actually have a question where I say, which one of these is the dividend? Which one is the divisor? Which one is the quotient? So that one is your divisor. The dividend is the one that's being cut up, being grouped up, being divided up. This one is the one that's doing the dividing. Okay? Now, before I do the problem, I want you to come down here and I want you to write something very small. And this is the most important little saying that you're going to remember in this chapter. Because as you guys know, I always have these things that I make you say. Like, for instance, when I say the saying, all fractions are, you guys know that the ending would be division problems. Okay, well, this is one of these things that I'm going to say something and you're going to finish my sentence probably 200 times over the rest of the school year, because I'm going to always say this. So be ready for it. Division is just, okay, I better go a little skinnier because I'm going to run out of room. Division is just, that's what I'm going to say. That's going to be the Mr. Garrison part. I'm going to say that, and you guys are going to say the following. Multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. Okay? If you don't have that written, which I'm sure you don't, go ahead and just pause the video, get it written down, because I don't want you missing how to do it. Okay, so hopefully you have it written now. I'm sure you do. Okay, this saying right here will be one of those sayings you're going to hear me say a bunch of times. Okay, so let me show you how it works. Basically, every division problem you've ever done in your entire life is actually multiplication. Okay, it's so weird to think about it. For instance, let's say I did 6 divided by 2. Everybody in this room, or everybody watching this video, knows that the answer is 3. You guys know 6 divided by 2 is going to give you 3. But let's follow the algorithm that I just showed you. Division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. So up here, I got to put them both in fraction form. So over 1 over 1. And then I got to then say 6 over 1. Division is just multiplication. So I'm going to turn it into a multiplication problem. By the divisor, I got to know which one the divisor is. The reciprocal of that divisor, which would be 1/2, which would give me 6 over 2, just top times top, bottom times bottom, right? 6 times 2. Now, what do those have a common factor of? Hopefully you're all saying 2. So divide 2, that's going to give you 3 over 1. Does that equal 3? Yes, it does. Your entire life you've been doing division, but really, all you're doing is multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. I'll give you another example. Here I have 20. And I'm going to divide it by, how about 5? Everybody in the room knows it's 4. Now let's think about it using the algorithm method that I just taught you here. Remember, they must go into fraction form. So 20 over 1 divided by 5 over 1. Okay? So division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. So the dividend never changes. So that's going to be 20 over 1. Division is just multiplication. So it becomes a multiplication problem. And the divisor, right there, we just talked about reciprocals. What's the reciprocal of 5 over 1? 1/5. Okay? So, I just got to do top times top, bottom times bottom, and I'm going to get 20 over 5. What factor do they share? Hopefully you all recognize that they share a 5, and I'm going to get 4 over 1, which equals 4. So we are just proving that this algorithm for division works. Okay? So coming back to this problem over here now. The dividend always stays the same, so I'm going to leave it as 4 over 1. Division is going to become multiplication, and the divisor, I'm going to use the reciprocal of it. Which, yes, remember, it is just the flipped version, but remember, reciprocals always have to multiply to equal 1. So 28 over 28, which equals 1 whole. Okay? So, I'm right here. I got to do the reciprocal of 4/7, which is 7 over 4. Okay? So now I do top times top, 28. Bottom times bottom, which is 4. So now I've got to simplify. So what factor do those share? Maybe some of you are just saying 2. Well, that's fine. We can do 2. Now we're going to get 14 over 2. Do they still share a factor? Yeah, they're both even still, so they share another 2. And that would give you 7 over 1, which equals 7. Okay? And that's what it equals. Now, just to make sure you guys are all clear, I cannot cross-simplify at this step right here. Cross-simplifying does not work with division. Cross-simplifying only works with multiplication. So if I were to come down here and look diagonally, what factor does 4 and 4 share? Hopefully you're all saying 4. So I could divide by 4 to both of those. And I could have just done that and then gotten 1 times 7 and 1 times 1 and gotten 7 over 1 right away. It's all about whether or not you want to simplify here in the beginning, which is easier, or simplify at the end. That's up to you. Okay? But just remember this. Division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, here we go. Don't worry about that up there. The notes are kind of messed up this time. Don't worry about that. Just scribble it off. Okay. Here we go. Let's follow the algorithm. Remember, division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. Okay. The dividend will never change. So that's going to stay as 5/3. But I got to remember, what is the reciprocal of a whole number? Well, remember, I got to put them in fraction form first. Okay, so I did that. Actually, I probably should. This is the way I'm going to make you guys do it, so I should probably do it this way too. 5/3. We're going to leave it division to put them in fraction form like that. Now we're going to do the algorithm. So the 5/3 is going to stay the same. Division is going to become multiplication. And the reciprocal of 2 over 1 is going to be 1/2. You can check for cross-simplifying. Is there anything? 3 and 1, no. 5 and 2, nope. So we're ready to just do top times top, bottom times bottom, and we're going to get 5/6. Okay? So that's that. Let's go to this one. Okay, the first step is to put them into fraction form. So I'm going to leave it as a division problem. I'm not doing any math. I'm just simply putting them into fraction form. All whole numbers have a 1 like that. Now I'm ready to do the algorithm. So here we go. Division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. So that's going to become 1/4. And the dividend will never change. Okay? Now let's check for cross-simplifying. Is 9 and 1, am I going to be able to simplify? No. But I look at 8 and 4. Is there a common factor that those share? Yes, there is. There is going to be a common 4 that you can divide by. So divide 4 there, divide 4 there. Now you've simplified it a little bit now, so you don't have to do it at the end. 2 times 1 is 2. 9 times 1 is 9. And that is my answer. Okay? This one here, first step, put it in fraction form. Both numbers need to be in fraction form. So we got 4/7. That stays the exact same. That never changes. Divide becomes multiply. And the reciprocal is 1/8. Remember, division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. So I won't cross simplify on this one just to show you it doesn't matter. You could cross simplify 4 and 8, but I'm going to go ahead and make it 4/56. Okay? And I know that they're both even, so I can divide by 2. Divide by 2. That's going to give me 2/28. They're still even, so I can divide out another 2. And that's going to give me 1/14. Okay? So it doesn't matter whether you divide by 2 and divide by 2, or if you would have divided out a 4 here and made this 1 and made this 2, you still get the same exact answer regardless. Okay? Here we go. We got 5/6 divided by 6/1. We got to make them into fraction form. Dividend, number being divided, does not change. 5/6 division becomes multiplication, and the reciprocal of 6/1 is 1/6. Okay, which is going to give me 5/36, which is in simplest form. Okay, let's go to the next page. Here's some. You can try these on your own if you'd like. I mean, I'll do one actually. Okay, but these are already in fraction form, so just one step's required, and that's just the algorithm step. Divide becomes multiply, and the reciprocal of 3/10 would be 10/3. Let's cross simplify this time. 2 and 3, nothing there that I can get out of them, but 5 and 10, they both have a factor of 5, so I divide by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now I get 4/3. Or I can convert it into a mixed number by doing 4 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time. I would have a remainder of 1/3. So 1 and 1/3 either way. Okay. Now I'm going to skip down here. Now here's a mixed number. Now here's what we've got to talk about. Okay, now you should have some space over here to the right, and I'm going to talk about it here a little bit. I'm going to just get rid of all their work because I don't like the way they did it for the book. Okay, so I'm just going to do this one. Now we talked about this in class, but it is, if I ever gave you a mixed number and said 2 2/3 times 1 1/8, something like that, you cannot multiply mixed numbers until they are in fraction form, which is, again, one number over another number. So I think the mistake, I'll write mistake again because this is wrong, but I think some students might think, oh, well, I could just do 2 times 1 and get 2, and then I could just do, like top times top, bottom times bottom on my fraction and get 2/24. That's 100% wrong. You cannot do it. The only way you can multiply fractions is by putting them in fraction form. So you would have to go around the barn like we talked about, make that 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8/3 times 8 times 1 is 8 plus 1 is 9 9/8, and then you're ready to do it. 72/24, which would be 3/1, which equals 3. Okay, that's how you'd have to do it. You cannot multiply or divide mixed numbers in the mixed number form. They have to become improper, or they have to become fraction form. So here, the first thing like this problem right here, I would need to see 2 steps, and I'm very picky about this, as you guys can only imagine. Okay, I'm very, 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 very picky about it. So when you're doing this, I would want step 1 to look like this. We go around the barn and go ahead and make this an improper fraction. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7/4. We are going to leave it a division problem. We are not flipping anything. The only math you do in step number 1 is putting it in an improper form. Step 2 then would be the algorithm. And again, this is one of these things you guys don't like it when I'm kind of picky, but guess what? I know what mistakes you're going to make, and I'm trying to help you not make them by making you do this. Now I'm ready to do the algorithm. Does the dividend ever change? Does that change? Never. It does not change. And remember, division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. So here we go. I check for cross simplifying. I don't see anything. So I get 35/8. Okay. I got to check and see if that's simplified, so I got to go through my steps. Is it even or odd? Remember all this? Like we did from chapter 1. Okay. And I look at 35 and 8 and I say, okay, one of them's odd. So that means the only thing they could have in common are 3, 5, 7, and 9, as we did from chapter 1. Okay, so I look and I say, okay, 3, let's check 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. Is 8 have a factor of 3? No. It ends in a 5, but does this one end in a 5 or 0? No. 7 is a factor of 35, but it's not of that. You end up finding out that that is in simplest form. Now, if you wanted to change it into a mixed number, you could, and it would end up being 4 and 3/8, but I prefer, for now, for you to just leave it in that method. But I want you guys to always do both. But for your clickers and whatnot, I want you to put it in as an improper fraction. Let's go to the next page. Okay, we have some here for you. Since there's a mixed number involved here, I would need to see 2 steps. Okay, so I go around the barn, That's going to be 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 is 19/8, divided by 1/4. Now I'm ready to do the algorithm for division, which is division is just multiplication by the divisor's reciprocal. So it's just changing that and the reciprocal of that. That's the only thing that changes. Okay? Cross simplifying, I look and I go, okay, 4 and 8. Yep, they both have a common 4. So I'm going to divide by both numbers by 4. And now I get 19/2 or 9.5. Okay? I would expect you to do both, the mixed number and the improper. Okay? This one here, 5 and 5/8. First thing you got to do, go around the barn with it. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 5 is 45, over 8. Leave it division, because we're not converting it yet. Okay? We got 45/8. Division becomes multiplication, and 3/4 is going to be the reciprocal of that, which is 4/3. Okay? So I look here and I try to see if there's any cross simplifying that I can do. I see that 4 and 8, I know that they both have a factor of 4, so I can divide by 4. Okay? Now maybe some of you that are a little bit better with your math facts can see that 45 and 3 both have a factor of 3. Whoops. So you could divide by 3, and this would become 15. Now you end up getting 15/2, or 7 1/2. Okay? So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like the same thing over and over. But just keep in mind, whenever there's a mixed number involved, I need to see 2 steps. Putting them in a fraction form, but leaving them division problems, and then doing the algorithm. There's your 2 steps. See, this was a mixed number. 1 step, 2 steps. Okay? All right, see you guys.